Yo, what is up, man? It's your boy Raptors here, bringing you a little in-depth discussion about jungling in general right now as a Patch V42. As right now, the jungle doesn't really have much to offer when it comes to knowing jungle routes, knowing how to kite minions, knowing how to deal with certain minion types if you're playing a different MOBA. Right now, the jungle's pretty bland. There's only 5-stack white minions and your green buff, and that's pretty much it. You farm them, you get your green buff, and you go out and you get into the action, which is a good thing that I like about Patch V42. Patch V42 lets you have a lot more fun as a jungler when it comes to rotating and to ganking and to starting fights, initiating, and overall being more active. Before in Patch V41, a lot of it was knowing how to kite minions, knowing how to execute your perfect jungle route, and knowing how to do little nonchalant things like that. And I hope that comes back in a certain form in the future, but I still hope that we still have a more action-packed game experience, gameplay when it comes to being a jungler. Before in Patch V41, there was a lot of ward spam, there was a lot of map awareness, free vision that was given out to your team and the enemy team, and every time you as a jungler try to gank or commit to a gank or try to rotate and stop jungling, to not farm, to rotate, they would have a ward, and you couldn't really gank as a jungler unless you had like a teleblink, or if the enemy team didn't have a ward, which is really, really rare, especially like in higher elo. Everybody freaking has a ward. But now with Patch V42, you can gank a lot more, you could secure kills a lot more, and you could counter jungle a lot more. And today I'm just talking about most notably counter jungling and just the state of the jungle role as I see it as a main jungler. I've been jungling for a long time. It's my main role besides offlaning. I also like offlaning a lot, but I've been playing a lot of mid lane now, and I'm deving into that. But I've always been a jungle guy. I love the role. I love being initiator. I love being in the front line and the action. I love being there to change the tide of battle. And in Patch V42, you do feel that power when it comes to being a jungler, because you get more successful ganks. There's just a lot more action in general when it comes to Patch V42. So a lot of things that have happened with Patch V42 is the jungle's very bland, like I said. So you're not going to be spending a lot of time farming or kiting minions or trying to worrying about your jungle route, right? You go up to minion camp, they don't do much damage, and you just clear the camp, and that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna be talking more about ganking and counter jungling. Now, when it comes to counter jungling, very good junglers will do counter jungling, and it varies between specific heroes. A lot of heroes, it's a little risky to counter jungle, like Chimera or Kwang, for example, who don't have an escape. If they commit to a jungle invasion, or if your hero doesn't have an escape, a lot of other heroes have come up in Patch V42 that are junglers. There's Richter, there's Seraph has came back, Aurora, and basically anybody can jungle right now. I'm not gonna lie to you, anybody can really jungle with the gems and the cards that are allocated to everybody now, and it's just open to everybody, and a lot of people can jungle now. So I'm gonna be not so specific on the heroes, but more like abilities. A very big thing when it comes to counter jungling is if you have an escape. Does your hero have an escape? Because if you don't have an escape and you commit to a jungle invasion, two things are gonna happen. A, you're gonna get the kill and it's gonna be a good jungle invasion, or two, it's gonna go bad and you're gonna get collapsed on and you're gonna get punished for committing to that jungle invasion, especially if you don't have an escape. Now, with heroes who have an escape ability, like Grux, for example, Grux is a very comfort pick hero for me. I've played Grux, I'm a master Grux, I've played him for so long. I'm very comfortable with his abilities and his dash and his combo potential, and Grux is such a good jungle invader. Same with Rampage. He's also a very good jungle invader because, again, he has an escape ability to escape the jungle invasion if things go sour. For example, with Grux, you can clear jungle camps really fast, but if you need to get out of the situation, you could dash out. If you're Rampage and you're invading jungle and things get hot, you could ult and jump out and you're safe. You're pretty much safe with those two heroes. Obviously, you can still get caught out, but it's a lot safer. You get it, right? Kwang and Chimera And Richter, I guess if you're jungling Richter, it's a lot more riskier to play with them. So jungle invading, it's not such a big priority when it comes to playing heroes that don't have an escape, and you more focus on ganking more than anything. So with heroes who do have an escape, you're in a very good position to invade jungle. Now, another rule of thumb when it comes to invading jungle, and it's a very black and white, which is usually not the case for most situations that I'm gonna mention, but this one's a very big yes and no. If the enemy is full health and they have their green buff, don't invade the jungle. Don't commit to a fight. Don't try to start a fight. Don't try to sneak a camp in there, because they're most likely going to out-sustain you. If they have green buff, they have extra health. When that green buff pops, you're going to take extra damage. So that's a pretty big no-no when it comes to invading jungle. If they have green buff, try to stay away from that. Another big little tip I can give you is when you have green buff. If you have green buff and you look to invade the jungle, it's a very good situation you're in. Why? Because you have extra green buff. You're going to have that extra little burst when that green buff pops. So usually you can save your green buff in Patch V42 to look for a gank, to look to invade jungle, to look to make a play, to tower dive, to be able to take a little bit more damage when you commit to a fight. And also a very good little tip, I guess, you can give you. Same when you get a river buff, if you get black buff, if you get stealth buff, and you think you could peek into the enemy jungle, go for it, and most of the time you will have success if you know what you're doing. Now, the biggest thing when it comes to jungling in general is having the balance game down to the wire. There's so much micromanagement when it comes to jungling. When do I clear my 5 stacks? When do I get my river buffs? When do I get my green buffs? When do I decide to roam? When do I posture myself to siege a lane? When do I posture myself to start a team fight? When do I posture myself, to invade jungle? There's a lot of little micromanagement things when it comes to jungling, and I honestly think jungling is the hardest role or the most experience needed when you start in jungling, because there's so many micromanagement things to take into consideration. But one thing I can tell you is when you're invading jungle, you need to have very good map awareness. You need to know if the enemy jungler is in the jungle. That's a very simple one. If the enemy jungler is in another lane and you're open to invade, take the chance to invade. It works. You can get green buffs, you can get Amber Link, you can clear up some 5 stacks, and most of the time they won't notice. Especially in Patch V42, vision is very lacking. There is not a lot of vision. A lot of people before Patch V42, they would ward the jungle because wards were so open and free and plentiful, and people would, ward the jungle just in case to know. But now in Patch V42, you can invade jungle a lot easier. You need to know if certain heroes are dead, if your allies have a lot of health or mana. If you start a fight as a jungler, keep aware. Is your mid laner, for example, does he have a lot of mana? Does he have health to follow up on your initiation? Knowing when to commit to fights is another big thing. Keep aware of your allies' mana and health bars. If abilities are used, if an ultimate is used, if a very crucial key ability you use is, for example, if an enemy uses a stun, if they use an ultimate, if they use, a certain ability, or if your ally uses a certain ability, try to posture yourself, try to keep aware of that. That's another very big tip. If you're positioning yourself to engage and a certain ability goes off, for example, a very big one that I like to follow is if I'm lurking around, I'm kind of roaming, I'm looking for a gank, I'm looking to start a fight, and I see the enemy Bellica use her stun. Boom, right away, I initiate, and you try to finish them off before they get their stun back up, which is usually not the case. You usually can kill them pretty fast. So certain things like that. Another thing to keep in mind when you're playing jungle role, know how people are playing. A very big one that I like taking into consideration in the beginning of the game is how does the enemy mid laner play? Are they playing really passively? Are they playing aggressively? What hero do they have? Are they playing Countess? Is Countess going to be overextending to get these last hits? Are they a ranged hero? Are they Iggy? Are they playing very passively and zoning very well? Take things into consideration when you're jungling. Again, it's another micromanagement thing you need to look at. like when I'm jungling, I'm looking at the map. I'm like, is this enemy mid laner playing aggressively? Are these guys pushing? Is the enemy jungler, not at their jungle? Like certain little things like that. Keep in mind, because if you commit to a gank on somebody who is playing very passively and they're in their tower, most likely you're not gonna secure that kill, right? You're gonna try to initiate and you're gonna end up under the tower trying to commit to this passive player who's just gonna run away from you, and you'll eat tower shots, and then the enemy jungler is gonna rotate and you're gonna die. Like, those things you need to keep into consideration. Or the enemy mid laner is playing very aggressively. They're an Iggy, they're Countess, they're another hero who has to overextend. They're Morgesh, they have to overextend to get last hits. Wait, lurk it out, roam, and find your timing. Another big thing about jungling is timing. Knowing when abilities go off and knowing when to initiate and when to use your abilities, okay? Another big thing, timing, positioning. Another very big tip that good junglers do, and it's a lot easier to do now in Patch V42 because it doesn't take that long to clear out your jungle, is roaming. Roaming is such a big keystone when it comes to being a successful jungler. And it takes time and it takes patience, because sometimes you'll be roaming for a minute, and nothing happens, and that's completely fine. Sometimes things don't happen. And what roaming means is you're looking around, you're between lanes, you're kind of, analyzing the situations, you're looking at certain heroes, and you're just waiting for your time to gank, right? That's your biggest thing when it comes to jungling, is ganking. And sometimes you won't get nothing out of it. But sometimes roaming is a very, very helpful tool. Because, for example, if you're roaming and let's say the enemy carry and support are taking the off lane, right? They're taking the off lane. The enemy off laner is low health, right? And the enemy tower is about to go down. The support and the carry might not be able to secure that kill on the enemy off laner who's low health, right? Because most likely the enemy off laner is going to run away. They're going to go back to base. But if you're roaming and you position yourself, you're waiting for them to take down that tower. You're waiting for that enemy offlaner to run back to their base. And boom, your Grux, you dash in from behind, your Warlord's challenge, you smash and grab, and you secure the kill. Because you chose to roam, you waited, you were patient, and you saw the opportunity present itself, right? That's one situation. Another one, you're looking around, you're roaming, and you don't have any jungle camps, right? You cleared out your jungle, you're just kind of roaming and waiting it out. A very simple situation is the enemy mid laner overextends and you go in and you get a kill. That's a very easy situation. Another one that's not as easy is when you know there's about to be a team fight. And this is like a spidey sense that you get when you're jungling, you've been jungling so long. Like, for example, you see the enemy mid laner is fighting it out, right? They're duking it out, and both of them are pretty low, right? And you have a feeling the enemy jungler is going to rotate right now to start and secure that kill on your ally mid laner. And by the time you know it, it happens, and the enemy jungler shows up, and the enemy mid laner thinks nobody's going to stop them, right? They're going in on your Iggy and Scorch, for example, and it's 2v1 now, and they're thirsty for that kill, right? They're going to go for it. They're going to commit to that kill. And I see this happen all the time. The enemy, your ally mid laner is low. They're getting chased into the tower, and it's 2v1. And since you were roaming, you're in position. Key term right there, positioning. You're in position to counter-gank. Counter-ganking. Another big thing that happens when you're roaming. And by the time you know it, they commit to it. They don't see you coming from behind. You land a very good combo, whether you're Kwang, Chimera, any Sevrog, whatever. You land a root, you land a stun, you land your ultimate, and boom, you kill the enemy mid laner because they were low. And then you kill the enemy jungler. You get a 2-for-1. You get a 2-for-1 deal if your ally mid laner died or if they escape. So that's another big thing that roaming offers to you. Being there, waiting, analyzing situations. And the more you play jungle, the more easier it gets to notice these little phenomenons when when your support and your carry are taking off lane, when the enemy mid laners are duking it out and you have a feeling someone's going to rotate, or, you know, posturing yourself to do raptors, posturing yourself to invade jungle. And these little things have been a lot more prevalent in Patch V42, and I hoped this gave you a little insight of the mind of a jungler. Hopefully you learned something. I know this was more of an unorthodox kind of guide, but I call it a discussion because it's more like I'm talking to you and just giving you a little spiel about how to jungle now. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoy it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It does mean a lot. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you.